Dustin Tibbetts with Passport to Wall Street, and today we're talking about alternative ETFs. Now, you more than likely have heard about ETFs in the past and how they work, but today we're talking about alternative ETFs. And so what does that mean? What does that even include? Well, typical ETFs that you may have heard of are names like the SPY. We refer to the SPY in our weekly ETF update, of course. That is the S&P 500. You may have also seen the QQQ. That would be the NASDAQ 100, and we also refer to the DIA, which is an ETF that tracks the Dow. And so these are index-related ETFs, and anything that's stocks or bond-related would just be considered a standard ETF. Well, at some point, you may want to explore other options and see what else is out there for you. So today we're going to cover a handful of alternative ETFs. Now, an alternative ETF just simply means that it's invested in alternative assets. It could be a hedge fund replicating type ETF. It could be volatility related. It could be cryptocurrency related. The idea being that it is something that is alternative to the traditional stocks, bonds, indices, things like that. So the first one that you probably have already thought of is really popular is volatility, and that's the symbol VXX. This is considered an alternative ETF because it's used as a hedge, it's used as a speculation type trade, and we all know what the VXX does. It's a measure of volatility. It's a way to trade volatility in the markets. Basically, when the markets go lower in an aggressive fashion, the VXX heads higher. When the stock market heads higher, the volatility reduces for the most part, and so the VXX tends to head lower. So the VXX is certainly one of the most popular ones. Now, there are others that maybe you've never heard of. We'll go through a few of them today, and one of them is the QAI. Now, you could simply just search any platform for alternative ETFs if you like along the way, but there are different categories. Now, volume and liquidity are still important. You want to make sure that if you trade one of these ETFs that there is enough shares there for you to be able to get in and out. So these, of course, fit that bill. The VXX fits that bill. And another one is the QAI. Basically, the QAI is an ETF that looks to emulate hedge fund returns, and it's actually quite interesting. They hold other ETFs inside of this ETF to try to replicate the performance and strategies of different hedge funds out there. So rather interesting. Certainly not suitable for everybody, that maybe you don't understand how that works, but it is really kind of interesting, and that ETF essentially takes the workload off of you. Let me see if I can see. The expense ratio is rather high. It's 0.79% if you're going to be a buy and hold type person. For example, the SPY is 0.12%, give you an idea of how sort of more expensive the alternative investments can actually be. Okay, another one is the WTMF. All right? So a little bit more, the ticker symbols you maybe haven't seen or heard of before. The WTMF, their goal is to provide positive returns in a rising and falling market. So how do you think they do that? If the markets fall, how do they end up making a profit? Well, they use a lot of derivatives. So they're going to be using a lot of options and things that are more hybrid, or things that are sort of more sexy that you don't get to see often in the normal index world. So just know that these are definitely considered alternative investments because that is not most commonly used in a regular ETF landscape. That's it. So it's a good comparison there. Your sort of standard, traditional, plain vanilla ETFs and your more alternative ETFs. Volatility as a great example, a hedge fund replicator, and something similar to a hedge fund replicator where it's considered an absolute return. They just want return all the time, no matter what. Well, I hope that helps you. I hope it makes you maybe think to look a little bit deeper, see what alternative investments are out there for you. If it helped you in some way, then I'm happy. I hope it makes you a profit too, and we'll talk to you soon.